The world as we know it, with its vast towers of money and the endless hum of trade, wasn't always built on the simple green paper we call the dollar. There was a time, not so long ago, when the global stage was a mess of shattered economies and warring nations, a time when countries didn't quite trust each other with their gold, let alone their paper money. Before a grand bargain was struck, the idea of one country's money holding sway over all others seemed like a faraway dream, a fantasy spun by the most ambitious of leaders. But as the smoke cleared from the battlefields of a terrible war, a new kind of war, an economic one, began to take shape, demanding a new kind of peace, one built not on treaties of land, but on the silent, powerful flow of money. It was a time of great fear, but also of great hope, as leaders from around the world gathered, unsure of what the future held, but certain that the old ways of doing business, the ones that had led them to so much destruction, could no longer stand. A world in ruins, the need for a new order. The Second World War had ripped through the globe like a hungry beast, leaving behind mountains of rubble and an even deeper pile of deaths. Countries that had once been rich and powerful now lay in ruins, their factories bombed, their farms scorched, and their people starving. Money, which was supposed to be a stable thing, was bouncing around like a wild ball, making it impossible for countries to trade with each other or even plan for tomorrow. Germany's money had become worthless once, and no one wanted to see that happen again on a global scale. Everyone knew something big had to change. They needed a way to bring order to this money chaos, a way to make sure that when one country bought goods from another, they could trust that the payment would actually be worth something tomorrow. The old systems had completely broken down, proving that when trust and money disappears, so does peace and prosperity. It was a truly desperate time, calling for truly desperate measures, and the search for a new foundation, a solid rock upon which to rebuild the world's economy, became the most urgent task of all. The brains behind the blueprint, Keynes and White. In this time of great confusion, two very smart men stepped forward with big ideas. One was John Maynard Keynes, a brilliant thinker from Great Britain. He was worried about making sure countries could trade without their money swinging wildly up and down. His idea was like having a giant worldwide bank where countries could borrow and lend in a new kind of global money. He wanted to make sure no one country got too powerful and that everyone had a fair chance. The other big brain was Harry Dexter White from the United States. He also wanted to fix the world's money problems, but his plan was a little different. He believed that the best way to bring stability was to link all the world's money to one strong currency, and he thought that currency should be the American dollar. He saw America, with its untouched factories and its vast gold reserves, as the natural leader of this new money world. These two men, with their different ideas, were like two chess masters, each trying to set up the board in their own way, knowing that the stakes were incredibly high for the future of the entire planet. The gathering at Bretton Woods, a mountain conference. In the summer of 1944, while the war was still raging in parts of the world, a group of very important people, 730 delegates from 44 allied nations, gathered in a quiet, beautiful hotel in Bretton Woods, New Hampshire, a place far away from the bombs and destruction. This wasn't a party, it was a serious meeting to decide the future of the world's money. For 3 long weeks, they talked, argued, and worked tirelessly, trying to hammer out a deal that would bring peace and stability to the global economy. Keynes and White were at the center of it all, pushing their ideas, trying to convince everyone that their way was the best way. The air was thick with tension, hope, and the smell of cigars. Every country wanted what was best for itself, but they also knew they had to work together. It was like building a massive puzzle where every piece was a nation's economy, and finding the right fit for each was a monumental challenge. The future of trade, jobs, and prosperity for billions of people hung in the balance, making every discussion, every compromise incredibly important. The Grand Compromise: gold, dollars, and fixed rates. After much back and forth, a big agreement was finally reached, a deal that would change everything. It was a clever mix of ideas, taking bits from both Keynes and White. The most important part was that the American dollar was now the king of all currencies. But there was a catch. The US promised to always be able to change dollars into gold at a fixed price, $35 for an ounce of gold. This meant that any country holding dollars could, in theory, always trade them for gold from America's vast reserves. In turn, other countries promised to link their money to the dollar at a set price. This system was like having a strong anchor for all the world's money boats. It made trade much easier because everyone knew how much their money was worth compared to the dollar and how much the dollar was worth in gold. This stable system meant less risk and more trust, helping pave the way for a huge boom in global trade and helping war-torn countries rebuild their economies from the ashes. It was a promise, a golden promise, from America to the world. The rise of the dollar, America's golden age of financial power. With the Bretton Woods Agreement, the American dollar suddenly became the most important currency on Earth. It was no longer just the money of one country, it was the money of the world. Because America had so much gold and its economy was so strong after the war, everyone trusted the dollar. Countries needed dollars to buy goods from America, to rebuild their own lands, and simply to keep their own money stable. This meant that America could print dollars and use them to buy things from other countries, and those countries would be happy to take the dollars because they knew they could trade them for gold. It was a fantastic position for America, giving it huge power in global trade and finance. American businesses found it easier to sell their products around the world, and American banks became the most powerful on the planet. This was truly America's golden age of financial power, a time when its economy grew by leaps and bounds, creating jobs and opportunities for millions of its citizens, all thanks to the trust the world placed in its green paper.
The catch for others: dependence and dollar shortages. While America was getting rich, other countries found themselves in a different kind of situation. They became dependent. To trade, to grow, to simply function in the new world economy, they needed dollars. But getting dollars wasn't always easy. They had to sell their goods to America or attract American investments to earn those precious dollars. If they didn't have enough dollars, they couldn't buy what they needed from other countries, which slowed down their own growth. It was like being in a game where America held most of the chips. This created something called a dollar shortage in many parts of the world, especially in Europe and Japan as they tried to rebuild. They worked hard to export goods to the US to earn dollars, sometimes at a disadvantage, just to keep their economies afloat. This dependence meant that what was good for America was often seen as a necessity for the rest of the world, shaping their economic choices and sometimes limiting their independence. The deal, while bringing stability, also created a hierarchy, with the dollar firmly at the top. The petrodollar twist, a new deal that would make the dollar even stronger, but this time its foundation wasn't just gold, it was oil. In the early 1970s, the US made a special agreement with Saudi Arabia, one of the biggest oil producers in the world. The deal was simple. Saudi Arabia would sell its oil only in US dollars, and in return, the US would provide military protection for the Saudi kingdom. Soon, other oil-producing countries joined in. This meant that any country in the world that wanted to buy oil, and every country needs oil, had to first get US dollars. This demand for dollars, driven by the world's thirst for oil, created a massive new reason for the dollar to remain the global currency, even when its link to gold was eventually broken. It was a brilliant, almost invisible way to ensure the dollar's power for decades to come. The end of gold. Nixon shocks the world. By the early 1970s, the strain on the Bretton Woods system was too much. Other countries had accumulated a lot of dollars and were starting to demand gold from the US, making America's gold reserves shrink. People were losing faith that America could really keep its promise to exchange all those dollars for gold. So in August 1971, President Richard Nixon made a shocking announcement. The US would no longer exchange dollars for gold. This move, known as the Nixon Shock, completely ended the Bretton Woods system as it was originally designed. The fixed exchange rates, the promise of gold, it all disappeared. Suddenly, currencies were floating, meaning their value would change freely based on how much people wanted to buy or sell them. It was a moment of great uncertainty, but because of the petrodollar deal and America's strong economy, the dollar still held its ground as the world's most important money. The link to gold was gone, but the dollar's power was not, showing just how deeply embedded it had become in the global system. The legacy of dependence, pros and cons for the world. The deal, which started at Bretton Woods and evolved with the petrodollar, left a huge mark on the world. On the good side, it brought a lot of stability and helped the global economy grow after the war. Trade became easier and countries could plan their finances better. It helped lift many nations out of poverty and brought new goods and technologies to people everywhere. But there was also a downside. The huge power of the dollar meant that America could borrow a lot of money from other countries without worrying too much about it because everyone needed dollars anyway. This also meant that when America's economy sneezed, the rest of the world often caught a cold. Other countries found it harder to control their own economies fully, always having to think about how their money compared to the dollar. It was a system that, while beneficial in many ways, also created an imbalance of power, making some nations feel like junior partners in the global financial game. Ongoing challenges and future uncertainties. Today, the world is still living with the effects of this massive deal. The dollar remains the most used currency for international trade and finance, but its dominance is sometimes questioned. Countries like China and Russia are trying to create their own systems to reduce their dependence on the dollar, especially as America uses its financial power in global politics. We see discussions about de-dollarization, where nations explore using other currencies for trade or even creating digital forms of money. The long-term impact of this deal continues to unfold, showing that even the strongest systems can face new challenges. The balance of power in the world is always shifting, and with it, the future of global money will continue to be a topic of intense debate and action. The story of the dollar's rise is a powerful reminder that money is not just numbers, it's a tool of power, influence, and the ongoing struggle for control in a complex world. Conclusion. So, we've traveled through the remarkable story of how a small mountain resort in New Hampshire became the birthplace of a financial system that would define the modern world, a deal that truly made America rich and in turn made everyone else dependent. From the ashes of a global war, a vision of stability emerged, spearheaded by brilliant minds who sought to tame the wild beast of international finance. The American dollar, backed by gold and later by the mighty flow of oil, rose to unprecedented power, becoming the bedrock upon which global trade and prosperity were built. This grand bargain, though not without its costs and controversies, fundamentally reshaped economies, fostered massive growth, and created an intricate web of interdependence that continues to influence nations and individuals today. It is a story not just of money, but of power, promises, and the profound ways in which human decisions made in quiet conference rooms can echo through decades, shaping the very fabric of our interconnected world, proving that some deals, once struck, never truly end, but simply evolve with the tides of history.